Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. As you can see by the title, I have made a pretty strong statement, and before I have a ton of comments telling me I'm wrong, just hear me out first. This is just my personal opinion, and I know many people will disagree, which is fine. I just feel, as a fan of both DC and Marvel, I need to voice my opinion as I think it makes a lot of sense. Now, first of all, I want to say that for the most part, Phase 4 of the MCU has been pretty disappointing for me. The only standouts being Spider-Man No Way Home, Shang-Chi, and Loki. Unfortunately, the rest haven't lived up to my expectations. Those expectations were built from the previous MCU movies, and I think I know why the quality of these new MCU movies have gone down. I believe it's to do with their competition. Now yes, a lot of fan favourites have gone, like Captain America and Iron Man, but there are still many heroes still in the MCU that were around when I thought Marvel were at their best, as in from Phase 1 to Phase 3. But the difference is, Marvel have built such a loyal audience that they don't need to be making great movie after great movie, because they know their loyal fanbase will watch the movies anyway. They know their rivals, DC, aren't really a threat, so they have no real motivation to create high-quality movies, because audiences will just keep watching them. If there was competition from their rival, Marvel would have to create higher quality films to try and keep the attention on them. But right now, there is no competition. I think if you're just a Marvel fan and you're not happy with Phase 4, then I think you should be looking at DC in the hope that they can wake Marvel Studios up and motivate them to create better movies. Now, I don't think that will happen with the current roster of DC movies coming out, as I simply don't think they'll be good enough to affect Marvel. But I think the SnyderVerse could. Now, that is where I expect some people to roll their eyes, and I can understand how biased that sounds, but hear me out. When I say the SnyderVerse, I don't just mean the old storyboards for Justice League 2 and 3 that Zack Snyder created in 2015. I'm talking about the original plan for the DCEU, but extended, as in a long-term cinematic universe that builds up to a Justice League 2 and 3. So we could have multiple directors for multiple movies, such as more movies for Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Cyborg, Green Lantern, and even Martian Manhunter. And that's just the Justice League characters. I haven't even mentioned characters like Deathstroke or Catwoman or even Joker. As of the reports coming out about the new DCEU, the SnyderVerse will be the only cinematic place where Superman exists, the only place where Cyborg exists, and the only place where a Batman exists in the same universe as other heroes, and one that isn't 70 years old. The SnyderVerse and the new DCEU are the only two plans we know of. One has the foundations already built for it, and the other is just about to start. From DC's business standpoint and a fan standpoint, a DC universe where Superman and the Justice League exists is a universe that should be continued. That is not the new DCEU. From Marvel's business perspective, they must be extremely happy with the direction DC are going in. They're not using their biggest cash cow in Superman, they're ignoring a universe where the only Justice League exists, and they have a massively divided fan base. Marvel are in their most comfortable position ever in terms of competition. If you look at when Marvel were in their prime, so to speak, and when DC were being their biggest financial competitor, it was when the DCEU were using their long-term plan. 2012 to 2019, or Phase 1 to Phase 3, was pretty much the time when the DCEU had a plan and when I think it was at its best. Obviously, there were some stinkers like the studio cuts of Suicide Squad and Justice League, but for the most part, the DCEU was heading in the right direction. To put it simply, DC's only two choices that we know of is a universe where the Justice League exists, where a long-term plan can be created, building up to their version of Thanos and replicating the long-term success of the MCU by sticking to their plan, or a DC universe where their biggest heroes of all time don't exist or are retired, a place where more than half of the past DC films have been erased from the universe and where there is no long-term plan in place. To me, it's a no-brainer. I'd rather have a universe where the Justice League, and especially Superman, would thrive in, instead of a universe where they no longer exist and where there is no long-term plan involved. I think restoring the SnyderVerse is a mutually beneficial scenario for both DC and Marvel. For DC, you have a long-term plan in place with the most popular DC heroes at the center of it. For Marvel, it motivates them to create better movies and in turn makes their fans happier. I think when people hear Restore the Snyderverse, they think fans are demanding that Snyder should direct every DC film, when really, Restore the Snyderverse means to bring back the original plan for the DCEU, where the most popular characters were taken seriously and where a long-term plan was actually visible, building up to the Justice League taking on Darkseid. I think if that was more clear, more people would be on board for the Snyderverse being restored. Maybe #Restore the original DCEU would be a better hashtag to use than Restore the Snyderverse, purely because that is what the true goal of the hashtag is, to pretty much bring back the original long-term plan for the DCEU. Maybe that is something us fans should consider changing. I just wanted to add that even though I don't think the new DCEU is strong enough to compete with the MCU, that doesn't mean I have already made up my mind as to whether or not they are good movies. That will be decided when I watch them. What I mean by saying I don't think the new DCEU is strong enough is the pull factor. When you have a DC universe without Superman or a Batman in his prime, or even a Justice League, you lose your most famous assets. Superman and Batman are the most famous and popular heroes of all time. Having a cinematic universe without them weakens that universe massively. It would have been like erasing Iron Man and Thor or Captain America after the first Avengers film. Your two most iconic heroes of your cinematic universe would be gone without a proper story or send-off. It just simply does not make any sense. Which is why I think the Snyderverse is so vital to the DCEU and to the MCU. I just think the Snyderverse is so much better than what the new DCEU has to offer. The Snyderverse has your biggest heroes in it. Not just that, but your biggest villains in it too. Justice League 2 and 3 had villains working with heroes to stop Darkseid. It was truly going to be an epic finale to an incredible cinematic story. If you wish to find out what was supposed to happen in the original Justice League 2 and 3, check out this video, Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3 Explained. The link will be in the description. But the main thing to focus on here is that I believe if the DCEU can restore the Snyderverse, then it will force Marvel to create better movies, as they will have true competition again, and will have no choice but to improve or be beaten. A mutually beneficial arrangement that I think could revamp the superhero genre. But make sure to let me know what you think of my opinion in the comments below. But that is all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe and turn on post notifications so you never miss a video. I hope to see you here again soon. So until then, have a great day. Bye.